Today I'm talking about this book, and it's called The Defining Decade, and it's by Meg Jay. And this book is about your 20s, so it says why your 20s matter and how to make the most of them now. I really like this book, and I really absolutely do recommend it, especially if you are in your 20s, even your 30s, perhaps even in your 40s, and maybe even if you're in your late teens. There's a lot of very useful information in this book. So the first thing that the book says is, your 20s are often seen as this time to explore, to get to know yourself, to travel and travel and travel and have endless drinks with friends and hook up with different people, date around, exploring and exploring and exploring. However, the book warns against exploring at the cost of having direction in your life. Because if you spend your whole 20s like that, your 30s are going to be really, really, really stressful for you. So it talks about, for example, work. It talks about how in your 20s your brain actually goes through its last major growth spurt, where your frontal lobe actually develops, and you learn how to calm yourself down, how to regulate your emotions, and how to make decisions. So for example, 20-somethings who enter the world of work can sometimes feel, be bombarded with, for example, constructive criticism that they've received from their supervisor, from colleagues, things at work that don't go well, and they can often feel really down and feel like quitting, etc. And what this book says is that your frontal lobe actually has to learn how to handle situations like this, because it's still developing and it's learning. So in situations like that, especially at work, where maybe you've received constructive criticism and it's made you feel down or something along those lines, it's very tempting to just like call your friends or whoever it is and use their frontal lobe. This happened, I don't know what to do, what do you think I should do? And always draw that kind of decision making from other people. What this book says is it warns against that, because you need to develop your own frontal lobe, your own capacity to be able to calm yourself down when you need to be able to make decisions when you need to, and to be able to just keep going. And this is especially important in relation to work. Also in terms of relationships, and it's how you mature actually, and it builds confidence over time as you become more and more capable in yourself. So I found that very interesting. The other thing that I found interesting was, let's see, it talks about identity capital. So 20-somethings, some 20-somethings, actually I know plenty 20-somethings that do this. They end up working in, who knows, Starbucks or some kind of job like that for different reasons, right? It's not necessarily bad to have that kind of job, especially if perhaps you're using it to fund your studies or you really can't find anything else, etc. But what this book basically says is it's really important to build up your identity capital. Your identity capital is basically your professional identity. So for example, if you're stuck between two jobs, one of them is taking an internship, but it's in a field that is actually related to what you want to do, even if it is a bit of a a runner's job, or if the other alternative is to work in a coffee shop. This book advises you, in that case, go with the internship. Why? Because it's going to build your identity capital. It's going to help to give you credibility for your next role that you apply for. So it advises against using, the good years of your 20s and just using them in jobs that are just not going to get you anywhere. So that is also very useful. It also advises against dating down. So your 20s are often seen as this time, time to hook up or time to just date or live together with whomever and not be too worried about it, even if things aren't going very well, because you have plenty of time. Well, what this book says is actually you don't have plenty of time, and if you spend your 20s like that, it's actually not very good for your own development, because we do gain happiness from being in emotionally, what's the word, compatible relationships, stable relationships. We do actually gain happiness from that, and it's good for our own growth. And also, if you live your 20s just kind of flitting around between different relationships, you know, by the time you're in your 30s and you do actually want a proper relationship, you're going to be under a lot of pressure to find someone. And if you want to settle down, then to settle down with them. And if you want to start a family, to start a family with them, you know, all in quite a compact time frame. And that can actually put a lot of pressure on a relationship. So it's definitely more stressful that way. Same with your career. If you don't really develop your career in your 20s, your 30s is going to be quite a stressful time as you struggle to start that career that you always wanted to, and get it going. And at the same time, perhaps start a relationship that you want to develop and settle down with or get married, you know. And it talks about, for example, how, you know, in your 30s especially, you can get other responsibilities that come, for example, family members that you need to take care of, etc. And if you're juggling all three plates at the same time, that can be a very stressful time period. Other important things that it says is, let's see. Yeah, do the maths. Do the maths. So, for example, if you want to do something in your life, say you want to be a dentist, a lawyer, whatever it is that you want to do, or you want to get married, you want to have kids, or you want to live in, I don't know what country or whatever place, or you want to have a certain job, you know, start to factor these things in. You know, say you are 25 now. When exactly would you do that thing? Or if you have a certain goal, how would you get to that goal? What steps would you take? How long would it take? How would it all realistically fit in? The book talks about how, you know, in your 20s you can feel very divorced actually from, say, your 40s, your 50s, but, you know, you're not. Honestly, you're not. You know, you will get older, and it'll all go a lot faster than you realize. So actually kind of have, you know, be on track with where it is that you want to be, how you want to end up, with whom you want to end up, and have, you know, just a basic time frame for yourself, so that you stay on track and you don't end up totally lost. In terms of weak ties, this book is also very good because it talks about the importance of weak ties. That research has actually shown that weak ties, so acquaintances that we have, are often the most useful in furthering ourselves, in furthering our careers. Whereas in your 20s, the inclination is to huddle together with, you know, your group of friends who you hang with every weekend or whatever, or have endless coffees, you know, and kind of, you know, you have your own banter and your own, almost like your own lingo. You know, that's not very good for your own personal development, because you don't learn how to widen your communication with a lot of different people. So it talks against hanging out with the urban tribe, as it calls it, with that closed, very closed group of friends. Also try to broaden your horizons, especially in terms of weak ties, who can possibly refer you to, you know, a job opening, an internship, or something like that. So don't underestimate the importance of weak ties. There's lots more other really useful stuff in this book. So I would say, in a nutshell, you know, it's really worth reading. I like the quote that is on the top of this cover page. It says that any recent college grad mired in a quarter-life crisis or merely dazed by the freedom of post-collegiate existence should consider it required reading. And it's true. I think a lot of people who finish college suddenly feel like, wow, you know, I have all this freedom ahead of me, and they've been used to how school works, how college works, how university works, and then you leave that very structured system, and suddenly there's no kind of time frames, you know, to mark the passing of time or what you're supposed to be doing in that time. It can feel like, you know, somehow a lot of stuff has to happen in these next few years, but you don't exactly know how, and there's no way to kind of really mark that passing of time. Not in the same way as, for example, time is marked at school or in college by going from year 1 to year 2. You don't have that anymore, you know, once you leave university. So in a nutshell, I would definitely recommend this, The Defining Decade by Meg Jay. I hope this was useful to you. If you have read the book, or if you're just interested in any of the topics that come up in the book, then please do leave a comment below. Thank you.